Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl Podcast, a 3-time award-winning show that aims to motivate and inspire you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and physical challenges. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you're passionate about adventure, challenge and learning from women who have overcome obstacles and achieved remarkable things, then this is the podcast for you. Every Tuesday at 7 a.m, new episodes go live featuring incredible women who share their stories, insights and tips to help you achieve your dreams and goals. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron. Visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me with Tough Girl Challenges, give shout outs and recommend other Tough Girl Podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com. You know what I've just really noticed is Pace-Humphreys, and I know I should probably realise this, but like pace, it's like running. Pace.
I know, right?
It's all connected.
And the thing is, my friend Emma Cook Odenubi, who I'm not sure if you've had her on the Tough Girl podcast, but she's amazing. And she's just announced that her first book is coming out next February. And it's called Your Pace, or something like Know Your Pace or Feel. And I was like, that's my name.
I know, I like it. But I was going to say, Sabrina, introduce yourself. Tell everybody your name, even though we've just talked about it, and who you are and what you do.
My name is Sabrina Pace-Humphreys. I am a run coach, a personal trainer, a community builder. I'm an activist, an advocate for representation in running. And I'm a mum of 4. I almost got that wrong. A mum of 4 and a grandmother of 3 who loves to adventure using my body.
And this is very excitingly, this will be the 3rd time that you've been on the Tough Girl podcast, which is really awesome. So we spoke to you a couple of years ago, but most recently we spoke to you August 30th, 2022. So we're going to be jumping in to hear what you've been up to in 2023, 2024, 2025 and what your plans are for 2026. But part of me is like, oh, should I just read out? Okay, I'm just going to read out 2 things at the bottom. So the final things that we talked about, the final 4 things that we talked about was Black to the Trails, which happened 11th September 2022. We talked about the vision board, you creating a vision board and your hopes for the future. You sharing wanting to participate in the UTMB wanting to participate in the UTMB race and also wanting to write a second book about running. Whew! So a lot has been going on. Like, where do we even start, Sabrina?
Oh my God, Sarah, like it feels like I've lived a lifetime in that time, doesn't it? I can't believe the last time we spoke was then. It feels like yesterday, but also when I got on the call today, I was like, when was the last time we spoke? It's been a manic couple of years. In so many good ways, so many hard ways as well. Let's just be honest. I'm all about the honesty and transparency. You know, there have been the very, very low lows and there have been immensely high highs. But oh my gosh, like where to start?
Well, we could jump in with Survivor, 2023 Survivor.
Oh my God, what an experience. I mean, I think that when we spoke, I had come back, hadn't I? And then I was waiting for the episodes to come out. That was, you know, I'd never done anything like that before. And it was one of those experiences that I think I'd said to you in the podcast that it landed in my inbox on Instagram one cold winter's night. And I was like, why not explore it? Little did I know that I'd get picked to be on it. But, you know, as anyone that saw that this woman cannot hide the hype woman that she is. I cannot hide. And actually, I don't want to. The fact that I am competitive. I am all about like the teamwork makes the dream work. And you kind of either love it or you hate it. And, you know, they saw me as a massive threat and got me out within like the second week. So that experience it ended very, very quickly. And it was so bizarre, like being on BBC One, like, you know, like seeing my face shining out from the screen and seeing myself through the lens of like a proper camera rather than just my phone camera.
Did you feel as though you were portrayed in the way that you see yourself? Because obviously I think everyone realizes at this point is that there is power in the edit.
I mean, It was really weird because I was so, when I got back, and actually when I spoke to you, when I got back from the Dominican Republic, which is where it was filmed, until when the show aired, I went into a massive episode of extremely poor mental health because a woman like me, I felt so out of control for a lot of my life, especially growing up and my experience around rural racism and having no voice and no power and no confidence. It kind of took me back to those times of like, I'm out of control because I knew that they wanted to produce an hour of programming that showed the extreme nature of different people's personalities and what they were participating in. So I knew that ultimately it's a television show, right? And you sign a contract that gives away basically all of your rights. I knew that. I'm not stupid in terms of getting into it. But do I believe that they portrayed me in a way that was true? In a sense, I kind of do. They portrayed the fact that a lot of the stuff that they portrayed was me being a hype woman, right? Using my voice in order to try and motivate a team, not being ashamed of, my journey and how I came to be here, being a mother, being protective, believing in fair play, understanding what my weaknesses are so that you could play to the strengths of others. Like, absolutely, it showed that. And I think that, within the edit, you could see the other members of my team saying, oh God, she's so loud. But yeah, I am loud and proud, because I do believe that, and my experience has shown me that I'm an advocate. I will use my voice and my body in order to advocate for others. And I use that via the words that I speak, via mantras that I have. I don't apologize for that and I never will. And that either you love that or you hate it. And, in the edit, it was played out that people didn't like it and people didn't want a competitor around that is able to cultivate kind of that community. And, let's not get it wrong. There's a hell of a lot that went on in the background that I absolutely reared up when I got back from the Dominican Republic and I heard had happened in terms of fair play. But it is what it is. It's a TV program. It's done. And, it didn't take off the way that the BBC wanted it to, hence the reason it hasn't been recommissioned. So, hey, it is what it is. I continued and I always said, Survivor was an experience. It didn't dictate the woman that I am, or it didn't influence what I do in the future. And I've gone on to become, stronger, wiser, and even louder in terms of my activism. So it is what it is.
One of the things I think which is so great about you is actually using your voice, and one of the things that you do talk about is around like mental health, and you said obviously throughout the past couple of years there's been these sort of amazing high points, and we're going to be touching on them as well, but also it'd be good just to sort of maybe dig into not the low moments, but I suppose coming out of the low moments. And is that still linked into running for you, or have you found other mechanisms for coping?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm really glad that we're touching on this because I think that the persona that I have, I think that it's very easy if you don't know my story, if you haven't read Black Sheep, if you don't follow me, it's really, really important for me to always be really transparent around my mental illness and my mental health issues. So I do experience episodes of depression. That journey, those months in between coming back from the Dominican Republic and Survivor being aired, I went into a very deep, dark depression. I had to seek mental health support around that. And one of the things I will say about the BBC is that their support of contestants around mental health was second to none. But, it was a really, really dark time. And what did I use to come out of that? I lent on community. I lent on the friendships, the deep friendships that I have, the people that I can be really vulnerable with in the sense of saying, look, I'm still doing this work to empower women, to empower people of color in trail running. But also I'm really, really struggling here. Like my identity, the loss of control, it's feeding into all of those things that I felt as a child and as a teenager and as a young teenage mum. And I had to lean into friendships, community and running. And I had to, as well as that, ensure that I had the other tools in my back pocket, the medication that I take for anxiety and depression, therapy, all of those things. Running is a tool that I use, but I think it's really unsafe actually for me to sit here and say that anyone says that it is the only tool. It's never been the only tool that I use, but it is one of the go-to tools that I use. And I absolutely, in that period and in periods since, running gives me my own time to be able to lose myself in that process of moving my body and work through the dark thoughts that are in my head. Those thoughts being, I don't want to be here. I shouldn't be the voice for this. Who am I to think that I can do this? Who am I to be a voice within this space? No one cares about my opinions. No one cares about me. Like all of these things that I know people listening to this who experience mental illness and mental health episodes, will understand when I say that. Running allows me the space to really clearly not block that stuff out, but work through it in a way that is healthy rather than shutting myself away, being in bed. And there are days like that, don't get me wrong. I'm all about being transparent. There are days when in the work that I do that I don't want to face the world because it's too hard, especially in the geopolitical climate that we're in here in the UK at the moment. But having a running program, having a schedule, having goals to reach keeps me accountable and gets me out the door. And that helps me process a lot of this stuff that's going on in my head that I can either speak to my friends about or I can then take to my therapist.
Yeah. I mean, there's like three of those words that you said, which I think are really powerful, is around like community, friendships and running.
Mm-hmm.
And you have that through Black Trail Runners, which is just going from what I see on obviously, you know, just on social media from strength to strength. But I'd love to hear more of your thoughts. You know, how is Black Trail Runners going? What's going on in that space? You know, how is it growing? What have you been working on? What are the future projects?
Oh my God. Honestly, that little idea in 2019 to realize it in 2020 and then to see where we are now is just, it's mind blowing, you know, and it really is testament to the power of manifestation, of doing the work, of, you know, actions being louder than words. And it's just, you know, we are the largest charity and community group in the world in terms of what we do, which is the, you know, inclusion, participation and representation of Black people and people of colour in trail running. And last year, I became Chief Operating Officer of the charity. So I'm now in a position where I can actually pay my mortgage while I do, you know, while I'm doing it, which for many years when you're growing a community, so much of the work is voluntary and it took a massive hit on me personally. But you know, in terms of who we are and the sustainability and the brand partners that we have and the donations and the public funding that we're able to attract, we are now, you know, we have a small employee base. So I'm head of operations and co-founder. And I mean, when I see what we do week to week, you know, whether it's from social runs, you know, this weekend I'm leading a social run in Bristol. It's like 80 people. We're doing that in association with the University of Bristol, who themselves are doing a lot of work around students of the global majority and mindful movement. You know, we're next week launching Black to the Trails, which will be its fourth iteration, you know, and you know, as people will have seen last year, like we are scaling the event. So as well as just having one event in the Southeast, we're launching an event this October in the Southwest in order to fulfill the demand from people who want to see a really more ethnically diverse running scene. So whether that's trail running, road running, and that's not just people of the global majority. And when I say global majority, I'm talking non-white people, but that's people of white ethnicity who themselves want to run in an environment that is globally representative, right? And I'm so proud that I get to be race director of that again. I'm so glad that I get to work with a core team that make that happen and volunteers who give up their time to make that happen. You know, it's so beautiful to be able to see that physical manifestation of what I believe running needs to be, which is running for all rather than running for a minority who can kind of afford it. And, you know, it's across the board what we do with Black Trail Runners, whether it's qualifying people of colour to become run leaders and run coaches, whether it's, allocating financial resources for people who are experiencing financial barriers when it comes to taking part in events, whether it's loaning kit, whether it's the work that we do in terms of bringing the next generation up, our youth work program, whether it is just being that safe space for people to share their doubts, their fears, safety issues, in our closed members community, whether it is going out there and speaking on podcasts such as this, or being invited to speak on panels, or representing at UTMB, and the likes. This work ultimately takes resource, but what we've created is a sustainable model, a sustainable charity that will be there until people no longer need it, or until the sector no longer needs it, because the sector is truly representative. And I could not be prouder of the work that we do and the members that constantly feed back to us to tell us what they need more of, and being able to be fleet of foot in order to address that is everything to me. And it's the one thing amongst others, but certainly within that top 10 things that I am so proud to be associated with. And, cut me in half and I'll be Black Trail Runners until the day I die, whether that's a COO or whether it's just as a member being able to take part in a more globally diverse running scene. That's everything to me.
Yeah, there is an incredibly powerful photo. I think there's 7 of you there.
Yeah.
And you're in the center. I think you know the photo I'm talking about.
I do.
All wearing t-shirts.
Yeah.
Here for the women's race.
Yeah.
And it is just so badass. And obviously, like everything we do at the Tough Girl podcast is around sort of women. So I'd love for you to hear more, obviously, about, here for the women's race, but also the work that you've been doing in that space with women, Black Trail Runners, and UTMB.
Yeah. No, it's the Here for the Women's Race campaign is the Here for the Women's Race is a initiative that was launched a couple of years ago by Corinne Malcolm. And what it came from is a situation that she experienced as a host of some of the live stream coverage at UTMB. And a couple of years ago, basically the airtime that was given to female elite athletes was nowhere near as much airtime as was given to the top 10 men, for example. And Corinne, being an elite athlete and being a host, etc., she really rose up against it. She used her voice in terms of the unfairness and the unequitable nature of that, and came up with the slogan, Here for the Women's Race, and started to applying it to t-shirts, etc., etc. Now, those t-shirts went crazy because ultimately, I think if you believe in an equitable running space, you believe in equity for all, right? Women should be paid the same as men. Women should be covered the same as men. Women should be given the same opportunities the same as men. But ultimately, we live in a male-dominated society, and certainly when it comes to sport, the male gaze is strong. But what Here for the Women's Race t-shirts did is that they were sold and they gave income, and that went on to her and Hillary launching the Women's Trail Running Fund. And the Women's Trail Running Fund is a fund that is basically all proceeds go towards more inclusion, participation and representation, especially around storytelling of women in trail running. And of course, when we come to the intersections of women in trail running, Black women, women of colour are disproportionately underrepresented within that space. So last year, Corinne and Hillary asked if I would form part of a steering committee of women around the world who were community leaders or advocates or did activism to get more women out there, to get more women seen within in this space, to address the barriers that existed for women within the trail running space. And I wholeheartedly wanted to be part of that. I'm part of that with other amazing women around the world who are doing great things. So our first round of funding took place earlier this year, and the first kind of stories, content is coming out from that. But what I'd said to Hillary and Corinne was that, the t-shirt felt very coded, the first t-shirt. It was, in terms of the representation, it wasn't necessarily being engaged with by women of the global majority. So I always had this idea, which was, can we create a t-shirt that is kind of like, in my head, I saw it like black and gold, that can be potentially, we could do it in collaboration with Black Trail Runners, because as a community group, the demographic of women at Black Trail Runners is higher than that of men. Like, it's what I see. I look at the data all day, every day. And And what we agreed upon was that we, for months worked on this t-shirt, the design of it, how it would work. And this t-shirt that you saw in that photo that was launched at UTMB is a collaboration between the Women's Trail Running Fund and Black Trail Runners. And all proceeds from that t-shirt go into enabling more Black women and women of colour to participate within trail running. So everything that we do, but all of that money is ring-fenced for women. And it gave me, those photos, like when I saw the t-shirt and when I see women of all ethnicities out on the trails wearing those t-shirts or at events wearing those t-shirts, it just makes my heart sing, because it's just another way that we can get that representation out there. But not only that can get actual funding into more initiatives to get more women out there adventuring in the outdoors via trail running in this way. And it's beautiful. And it just really took off. Even when I was running UTMB, although the t-shirt had only been launched that week, it was on sale at the UTMB Expo. And I saw women that were cheering me on as I was going around the course in this t-shirt. And I was just like hugging them and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. It just shows the power of that community thinking, the power of these funds really understanding the barriers to access for marginalized communities and putting their money where their mouth is in terms of helping to address that.
So, like I said at the start, actually, when we spoke in like 2022, you shared about wanting to participate in the UTMB. What has that journey been like for you? Because I know you sort of started as a spectator and you've been over there, but how did it get to the point where you got to participate in the UTMB?
So just like everyone else. And I mean, for your listeners that, obviously, I'm sure other people have spoke about UTMB, but UTMB is the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc. It's 108 miles lap around the Mont Blanc Massif, takes part as part of UTMB World Finals Week every August. And how I got into it was exactly how anyone else would get into it, Sarah. I managed to collect a specific amount of running stones, which you are allocated running stones if you complete any UTMB race across the world. I think there are 79 races at the moment and they're growing. Here in the UK, we have Arc of Attrition and Ultra Trail Snowdonia. So I did what every single other runner does when they want to get a space in UTMB. I put my name in the ballot last January. And I waited until late January to find out if my name had been picked. I wasn't giving any preferential treatment. It wasn't a media pass. It wasn't a pass for any other way other than going through exactly the same structure and an application process that everyone else does.
Can I quickly ask then? So sorry, yeah. I haven't heard about the stones thing. So I'm obviously like, how does that, so you've got to, so you enter, if you enter a race, like, so you said like the Snowdonia.
Yeah, like Ultra Trail Snowdonia, yeah.
And then you've entered it, you complete it, then you get a stone and then
basically, yeah. So how it works is that the UTMB model, which has changed since Ironman bought into them, but that's a whole other conversation that you need another podcast episode for. So basically, if you take part in any UTMB race around the world, you will be able to gather a different number of stones. So if it's a shorter distance event, it might be 1 stone. If it's, for example, I did Arc of Attrition last January. I completed that. It was a 100K race. I was allocated 3 stones. If you take part in longer 100-mile races, even if you did the 100-miler Arc of Attrition or Ultra Trail or anywhere, you'll get 4 stones. So every single UTMB, and it has to be a by UTMB event. So back in the day, before Ironman took over UTMB, some events you could do, they didn't need to be UTMB events, but you were able to collect stones from doing them. But that all changed when Ironman took it over. They saw a gap in the market. They saw money that they weren't making that could be made via people just doing their events. So you can only now collect stones by doing a by UTMB event. But yeah, depending.
And then the stones equate to like 1 raffle ticket or something.
That's exactly it. So basically, the more they equate to raffle tickets in the UTMB World Finals ballot, basically. So the ballot, because the UTMB finals week is the Super Bowl of mountain running, right? It's like, it's big. It's where most people that hear about it want to be there. You see it on the live stream or on telly. You're like, wow, what is that? So in order to get into the races that week that take place that are finals races, so that is OCC, CCC, and UTMB, you have to have gone into a ballot for that. And the ballot takes place every January. So the more stones you have, the more chances within that ballot you have of being picked. Does that make sense?
It does make, I mean, it's perfect sense. What was it? So thank you for explaining that, because I knew it was a ballot process. I just thought it was just, you just entered. I didn't realize you had to, and you can't just enter unless you've got these stones.
Yeah, you can't. So basically the races, there are many, many UTMB races, but if you want to do one of those races, you can only enter them if you have at least one stone. The other races that take part in that week that you can buy into are Petit Trollillon, so PTL, which is the big, like multi-day race that you do in a team of 3. So you can buy into just doing that. You just apply and get in. The other races are ETC, which a couple of our runners did this year. So that's a kind of 20K race that you can buy into. You don't have to go into a ballot. TDS, which is 145K, just under 10,000 meters of ascent. And you can buy in to do that. You don't have to go into a ballot. And then the other races they have that week, MCC, you can only get into if you're a partner or have volunteered at UTMB in the past, or it's like a media space. And then YCC are their like youth races that, again, you buy into. But no, if you want to do any of the finals races, you have to have stones. Other races you can buy into without stones.
So getting a place at this race is really like a combination of a serious amount of like hard work,
absolutely,
running hundreds, if not thousands of miles with the training involved. And then also just that element of luck, whether your name gets pulled out.
Yeah.
So your name did get pulled out.
It did. It did.
So take us back to the moment, the feelings, and then the planning, the preparation, like, you know, getting yourself ready for that race. Was that going to be like your A race, or was this talk us through that year.
I mean, oh my God, that feeling. I remember, because I've gone for UTMB for years and years, right? I've never had my name picked out of the hat. And you just get to a point where you are like, it's not going to happen for me. You know, it's just not going to happen for me. And I remember the day that I was sitting where I'm sitting now talking to you, and it was like UTMB, like ballot results day is like Christmas Day. You're like waiting. And I saw the email come in. I was like, it's from UTMB, but I had to open it up and it was like, you're in. And I posted it on social media. I screamed. I was like, oh my God. I was screaming. I was like, oh my God, I got in. It was just like the relief that finally I'd get a chance that I could stand on that start line in Chamonix in August amongst those thousands of other people as a minority, as a woman. You know, this year, I think the women at UTMB were 23%. So much lower, like less than 1% women of color. I didn't see any other black women out while I was doing UTMB. And I was just so excited. It was like, oh my God, this is a dream come true. But then the reality hit, right? Okay, this is my A race. What is my year going to look like? Spoke to my coach, looked at what my B and C races could be, started to plan in weekends to spend in Snowdon, over in France. What does my schedule look like for work? Where am I going to get altitude training in? All of these things that I knew that I would need to plan. You go into like planning mode, and it becomes your life, because, you know, from where I am Snowdonia is the best place to practice because you can get the longest ascents, you can get the terrain, you can have big, long, tiring days. so that's where I knew I needed to spend a majority of my time when I was kind of, going out the weekends. And also Ultra Trail Snowdonia 50K was my B race. So also I wanted my training to be specific to get into Ultra Trail Snowdonia in May in order to really get a good idea of where I was heading into like the final training phases into August for UTMB. So it was like a massive, massive planning operation. I also knew that every time I'd been out and run and raced at altitude, I'd got really, really bad altitude sickness. But last November, I was awarded an honorary doctorate for the work that I do by the University of Gloucestershire. And when I had been training for MDS in 2016 to go and run that in 2018, I had used their altitude chamber for heat training. So I reached out to them because they'd given me the honorary doctorate last November. And I said, look, would you consider supporting me in altitude training because I get really, really ill. I just want to minimize all of those elements that I know I'm going to hit at UTMB that could stop me. So, I mean, they were amazing. What they did for me was superb in terms of like using the chamber, in terms of a protocol for altitude training that was written by, their head of sports science, through to giving up their time every morning for 3 weeks in order to watch me in the chamber. So it was just such a massive undertaking, Sarah. It was bigger than anything that I had ever done before in terms of planning.
I also hope you had at the same time like booking.com open so that you could book accommodation.
You know it. You know
it.
Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, every year, and I would say this to anyone that is interested either in going and taking part in any of these races or just watching the spectacle of like seeing the best trail running athletes in the world and amateur athletes and that human endurance race, like seeing people that are battling cut-offs, which is what I was, coming through and crossing under that arch and seeing that real human endurance in all of its glory. I always book my accommodation before I leave Chamonix the year before because it gets booked up really, really quickly. The prices are crazy. So as well as I'd already done that, because I knew even if I didn't take part in any of the races, I'd be out there, right? I would have people I'd want to support and there would be work that I'd need to do out there. But certainly when I got in, the next thing I did was like book all of my accommodation. I knew I would want to live at altitude the week before. So I stayed in Tignes, which is a ski resort at like 2,000 meters, and it's in Switzerland. So I booked booking.com was open for like my Tignes accommodation, my Chamonix accommodation, my Snowdonia accommodation, the accommodation I needed when I went out and did my 4-day recce of the whole route at the beginning of July, all of that. It's so bloody expensive, Sarah. It's crazy.
I don't even want to think about it because running is not, and running these distances is not. I was speaking with somebody else and with the cost, because also it's the amount of trainers, the amount of gear that you're going through, trying to train, if you are having gels, for example, or if you're on, on a protein powder, like L-glutamine powder, creatine, all the things that you can take to supplement, even getting regular massages, going to the gym, like the costs are really going to be adding up. But obviously, same time, it's your passion. You absolutely love it. It's, to be honest, it's part of your job really as well.
It is. It kind of is. And, don't get me, and again, I kept a spreadsheet because, a lot of the work that I do is around the barriers to trail running for people, and financial access is a massive barrier, right? And it's one of the issues that I have with the UTMB, how they operate their business and how expensive some of their races are, and how therefore that makes them inaccessible, right? And it's not just for people of color; it is for anyone that has to make a choice as to whether I take part in this event at 200 quid for a 100k place, plus everything else that goes with it, or whether I don't, whether it's just inaccessible for me. So I kept a spreadsheet, and before I got to UTMB, it was nearing on £15,000.
Wow.
£15,000. All of that money was my money, like money that I worked hard for, that I saved for. I wasn't supported by any, I'm not in a partnership with a brand. I don't get all my kit for free. Black Trail Runners is supported by Adidas Direct. So therefore, through my Black Trail Runners communication, I was able to say, look, I really need a new waterproof jacket. Is there anything that you could do to help me? So there were some items that were gifted to me, but the majority of that money was my own money that I spent. And you're absolutely right. It's my passion. It was my dream. I wanted to be there. My husband is fully supportive of this stuff that I do. He knows how important it is to me, but it is also my job. Like, it's turning up. It's one thing talking about the importance of representation for women and women of colour and mothers and grandmothers and all the intersections that I inhabit on start lines. It's another thing when you're actually there doing it. It's being there doing it that speaks so much more to the people that I'm trying to inspire and I'm trying to advocate for than me writing an article about it. To be able to experience it and to report back and to share the journey has brought so many women, especially, to know, like, what is this UTMB? Right through to how can I even experience a little bit of that, Sabs? Like, how do I even start? Like, I've followed you. I've seen what you've put in. I'm not there yet, but you started from nothing. So how can so it's so important for me to put myself in these positions, right? So yeah, it is my passion, but it is also part of my job too.
Yeah. So would you like to share more about August UTMB? What is it like on that start line? Like, how are you feeling? Like, do you, do you feel now, I suppose, because you have more of a social media presence and because you are part of that 1%, pretty much
Yeah.
you're the only Black woman on that start line. Are you feeling alone or are you just sort of beyond that now? That's not even a thought for you.
I think it's a really weird line that I tread on that. So yeah, I do have an increased social media presence now. People know me for the work that I do, for what I stand for putting myself in situations that many women that speak to me would just not have the confidence right now to do. So of course that week I've been looking forward to 20. That week I was so busy. I was so busy being out there supporting my friends who were out there, supporting members of Black Trail Runners, speaking on panels. And it was being filmed as well. So the film's in post-production at the moment. So there was a film crew, independent film crew, and the film crew behind some beautiful films, one of them being The Source, Courtney DeWalter, another one being Free to Run, which my friend Stephanie Case was the protagonist of. So there was all of that going on as well. But yeah, I'm a human. Like, I walked to the start line. I was the only woman of Black heritage there. I looked around. There were no other women of Black heritage there, all women of colour that I could see, predominantly white men. And yeah, like, no one was speaking to me. Like, no one was, everyone was very quiet, if I'm being honest. It wasn't just, oh, they're not speaking to me. Everyone was in the zone. They've trained so hard to be on that start line. They've seen that start line in so many videos that they've watched. They've heard that Conquest of Paradise music. It's a really quite ethereal but isolating experience because you all know what's ahead of you, right? Like, you've trained so hard for it, but most of us have never done it before. And also, I know that my world is watching. So I know how many people are like watching the dot, looking at the tracker, are willing me on. So there was that weight of expectation as well, right? I didn't want to let anyone down. I didn't want to let myself down. And that experience, I just wanted to go. I think I'm the kind of woman that I don't like the pre-race faff. I just want to like get to the start line and go. I don't want to hang around. I just want to. So I was just so keen. Can we just get moving? But you're sat on that start line for like an hour and a half. But it was different than what I thought it would be, Sarah. It looks so epic when you see it online, but everything's heightened. The volume's turned up when it's online. That Conquest of Paradise music seems so loud when you're online. When you're there, it's not easy to hear because you've got people talking around you. It's not as loud when you're actually on the start line as it is. So it's quite easy to miss it. So yeah, it wasn't it wasn't as epic being a participant in it as it is watching it from the sidelines.
Dream race. You've been training hard all year. How did it go?
Long story short, I was timed out at Champay-Lac, which was 80.88 miles in. Those that know or those that watch will know the conditions this year were brutal. We had sleet, snow, rain all through the first night. And, I come from England, right? And I knew, the one thing I said all the way along, people were talking about the weather. I'm like, I'm not even looking at the weather because I know I can't control that. All I can control is my reaction to the weather and ensure that I have the right kit, ensure that I have the right tools at my disposal in order to deal with that. But, the rain started from 10 minutes in. So we were just heading out of Chamonix, getting towards Le Bosson, where the route took a diversion because there had been a landslide and the rain started. It started coming down. We're all putting on our waterproof jackets as we head into Les Houches. It tailed off a little bit on the first climb up to Col de Vosa. And you're just getting into that climb out of Les Houches to Col de Vosa is brutal. You're literally 7K in and then you're climbing up, you're almost 1,000-meter climb. And like you're getting into it, right? Your body's still like, what are we doing here? My body, sometimes it takes 10 miles for it to warm up. So everyone's body your heart rate is going. It hasn't yet kind of equalized. And you're just like, oh my God. But, I'd done it in a recce. I knew that it was a tough bit. I knew that my body wasn't yet warm. So like you're climbing up. What a lot of people didn't know is that on the Monday before the race, I'd been doing some filming and I tweaked my calf and I was so annoyed with myself. Just a slight tweak on the calf. But, I did the typical runner thing. No, I won't run on it between now and Friday. It'll be fine. And, I was walking around on it and it did seem fine. 10 minutes into the start of the race, I was like, shit. I was like, oh my God, my calf tweak is here. So I saw my friend halfway up the Col de Vosa climb and I got her to get a message to my crew. The first time I was seeing them was at Les Contamines Montjoie, which was 50K into the race. And I said, they need to have the codeine ready, paracetamol ready, and my calf's going to need to be taped. So that was playing on my mind. So therefore, not that I would have let myself go really fast within that first 50K, but I certainly held back more than I wanted to. But still, I got into Saint-Gervais, which is the first aid station, half an hour ahead of my anticipated time. I fueled. I ensured I had what I needed for the next section up to Les Contamines when I would first see crew, and got into Les Contamines again half an hour before my time. The rain was still raining. It was getting worse, but we knew what we were in for, and I was feeling in a good space to take on the first climb out of Notre Dame de la Gorge up to Col de Bonhomme. And that is a hell of a climb. You're in the open mountains proper. Everyone's going into their own zone. It's deathly quiet. All you hear is the clitter-clatter of poles. The weather turned from rain into like halfway up the mountain into sleet. There were UTMB volunteers on the course saying, stopping everyone and saying you have to put on all of your extreme weather kit. It's getting worse up there. And anyone who's seen any footage from that will know that, it was a snowstorm. It was a blizzard at the top of the mountain. Open mountain, single track. You're being held back by who's in front of you. I was in a queue that I wanted to go faster, but there was no way to. So your body is getting colder, your energy demands are higher, but you're in gloves and everything, right? Like take your gloves off in a snowstorm in order to take a gel. You're having to, as you're heading down the mountain, it's basically a muddy track. Everyone was slipping over. What I'd done in my recce in June, which is I got down that bit in like 45 minutes, took almost 2 hours to get down it. Everyone's going over left, right and center. You're on the edge of a mountain. Like it was like hell on earth. Got down to Champay and literally the checkpoint was like a war zone. There was people hypothermic. There was people fainting. There were people shaking. There was a high amount of DNFs, people that couldn't go on. I got in there pleased with myself because I'd made it within the cutoff, because the first 50K of UTMB, they make runners go fast because they want to get rid of really slow runners because they don't want their volunteers being left out on course as you go along the course too far. So I got in there and it was It was hell on earth. But I remember my friend had said to me, Sabs, just get in and get out. Like, get what you need and get out, because you've got the next climb, which is up to Col de la Seine, which is the boundary between France and Italy. And my God, Sarah, literally, I got out of that checkpoint and then suddenly my body went into just a massive, massive energy deficit, whereas I just hadn't taken on board enough energy on that climb down from Col de Bonhomme. I thought I was, but what my body had demanded was so much more than I was putting in. And I just hit this massive, massive wall, Sarah, a wall that I'd never, ever experienced before. And that for 50 miles, I could not get out of. It did not matter what I put in, gels, real food. It seemed that everything I was putting in was backfilling. It wasn't giving me power. It was just backfilling the massive energy deficit that had built up just on that descent. And it didn't matter how slowly I tried to eat. It didn't matter what I tried to eat. I had no power. Like, climbing is my superpower. Anyone that knows me and has seen me out on the trails, I'm like, give me a hill, give me a mountain, and I'm going to show you what my thick thighs are made for. Like, they are made to climb. And losing that ability on the climb up to Col de la Seine, I was in an emotional hole that had me questioning everything about my training, the woman that I was, the athlete that I was, the people that were watching. The worst thoughts that you've ever experienced, or anyone listening to this, that we have about ourselves when we're in that low mood state, was there. And yet I knew I still had over 100K to go. And it was horrific. I got to Lac Combal because they'd taken out the pyramid section because the weather was so bad that they didn't want us going up there. So down to Lac Combal, tried to reset, had some hot soup, had some bread, gave me a little bit of energy, but then climbing up to Maison Biel, out to Checroute, and then the descent down to Courmayeur, it was nothing. I was crying because I was like, nothing I am doing is giving me the energy to be able to put everything I know I can put into this. I just have no power. And it was so frustrating. I got into Courmayeur and was starting to lose time. And that's Courmayeur. It's not even halfway. People think it's halfway, but the reason people think it's halfway is because it's like 80K of the race, right? A lot of people drop out there, a lot of DNFs there, because it's easy to get back to Chamonix through the Mont Blanc tunnel. So you have a lot of DNFs there. And I was absolutely adamant that I would not DNF at Courmayeur. And Neil was there, my husband was there, Grace from Black Trail Runners was there, the film crew was there. So I got in there, I was wet, I was muddy, I was energy depleted, I was just blank and numb. But Neil did what he always does for me, and that is to gather me, is to not give me any sympathy, to gather me up, to give me what I need, to help me get dressed, to feed me as much as he could, and to send me out on my way. But, then we had a massive climb out of Courmayeur, and again, just energy zapping. We're getting into like between noon and 2:00, hottest part of the day. Everyone's suffering on that climb out of Courmayeur to Refuge Bretonne. And yeah, I mean, there's a video that I posted on my Instagram last year, which shows how absolutely delirious I am at the top of that climb. And I just knew from there that what I didn't want to be was battling cut-offs. And I knew that I would be in a situation where I was literally battling cut-offs. And yeah, the next couple of cut-offs to Arnouvin, to La Foulie, to Champay-Lac, where ultimately I was timed out, I was getting into those aid stations with like 3 minutes to spare before they shut. I wasn't able to eat. I wasn't really able to drink. It was literally check in, check out. So it's no fun, right? I am a mid-pack to back of the pack runner. On a good day, I'm mid-pack. On days where it's hard, I'm back of the pack. When you're a back of the pack in these races, you are really alone, right? Like it's you and some and others. You're in your own headspace. You're battling cut-offs. You're energy depleted. You're physically depleted. You know, most of the supporters have gone. It's just your supporters that are around. You get into aid stations and they're getting you out. Then they're not really showing you any kind of support. Well, they didn't at UTMB. They're literally, you need to get out of here. You can't sleep. You can't rest. You can't really eat properly at the aid stations. You've got no time. And it is a war. It's a war. And that's why I'll always advocate and always speak for people that are at that section in a race, because they don't get enough kudos for what they do. They are the epitome of grit. And I was in that, right? I was in that place with those people who are hallucinating because they haven't been able to sleep, people that actually shouldn't really be out there, but they're out there doing the thing. And I said to myself at one point, I was like, Sabs, you're not ready to DNF from your decision. You will keep battling with this race until it spits you out. And it spat me out with literally 20% of the course to go on the final climb up to Champay-Lac. I just didn't have it in me, Sarah. I had no strength in order to push the way I needed to push in order to meet the cutoff. And that's where it ended.
Honest to God, it's still absolutely phenomenal. Although I love, like, it's, you know, it's talking about, it's the dream race, it's the goal, it's the UTMB, it's the atmosphere, it's the joy, it's the passion, you know, it's like so much excitement. And then it slowly turns into this nightmare. With, you know, you know, weather and like that cold and zapping and then not being able to replace your energy and tweaking your car. So sometimes things just happen. And then, you know, mentally as well, when it's like that, like, especially if there's like, I always think if there's like a little crack, you know, like then it's easier for the negative thoughts to get in. And then once they're in, then it can spiral, and it can be, it's like, you know, talking about, you know, trying to get that energy back. It's trying to get the mental energy back as well. Like, not easy, but also I think really important for you. Thank you for sharing what you shared, because I think you've really explained like what it is to be out there. And I totally agree. You know, the back of the pack, like when you're out, especially, you know, because we've both done like Marathon des Sables. I remember on the long stage, like I was honestly in awe of everyone who was coming in, you know, like the following day for the long stage, knowing that they'd been out there all day, all night, and was still coming in the following day. And I was just like, it's just unbelievable with that grit and that resilience. And that's what running these races, to be fair, is all about. Now, you've got some very exciting news about running. Would you like to share that news with us all?
Yeah, so I have been working on the Natural Second book, which is basically the culmination of years of experience spent running and spent working with women, and women who are very much at the start of their running journeys or are returning to running after a long break. So yeah, my new book, Start Where You Are, the complete 5K guide for women, is out. It's oh my God, I'm so happy to be able to say it. Like it is the book that I needed in 2009 when I had no idea about running. I didn't see anyone that liked me that ran. I didn't know what kit to wear. I didn't know where to run. I didn't know how to keep myself safe. I had no idea. I had no plan. I pulled a plan off of like Runner's World online, which was absolutely not made for me, but it was the only one that I found. It is the book that I wanted and I'd never been able to find. And I have never been able to say to my women runners, the runners, you know, I built Stroud Mums on the Run, which is the women's running community that I founded in 2016. You know, the women that I run with at Black Trail Runners, they were getting into trail running. They're like Sabs, the women that I know from other communities that I've been invited into. This book didn't exist, right? And now it does, because I've written it, and I am absolute. I'm so excited. I'm like a kid on Christmas Eve this week because it's out there. Start where you are. I called it because ultimately, whether as beginners or whether we are women coming back or whether we're women that are like, you know what? I heard Sabs talking about this UTMB and I wouldn't mind trying that, but how do I get like you need someone, right? Someone that you trust, someone that's done it, someone that's been through it all, someone that isn't an elite athlete. I'm not, but I am a running coach. I am a personal trainer. I am a community builder. I am a mum. I have been that, all of these things. I'm a perimenopausal woman. All of these things that can be barriers and can be that reason not to do it. I've talked about this within this book because I know if I talk about it, if I bring other women's experiences into it, from amateur athletes right through to experts who give their expert advice within the pages of this book, it's that complete guide. And I'm so proud of it, Sarah. But it was the natural second book, right?
To be honest, like it just makes so much sense in my head as well. Because
Yeah.
like you've just got so much passion for it, and also you've just got so much experience. And like you just said as well, the fact that you are a mum, a grandmother, the fact you're 47, you're perimenopausal, the
Yeah.
fact that you get it, the fact that you talk about your mental health in such an
Yeah.
open way, and also the fact that you've dealt with not feeling like you belong,
Yeah.
which a lot of women will feel, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't know where to start. And actually, start where you are, which
Start
is
where you
yeah.
are. It was so, when I was thinking about, because I've spent, people have asked me like, where did the idea for this book come from? And I was like, it's like just my life's work, from starting running as a 5 stone overweight new mum, experiencing really severe postnatal depression in 2009 and having nowhere to go, no one to talk to, no community I was part of, not seeing myself represented, having to find out so much of this stuff for myself, and then wanting so passionately to use that in 2016 in my local community and starting Strab Mums on the Run, and then going on to my own journey in running and entering these new spaces like mountain running. What's all that about? Who's out there that's like me, that isn't an elite, but just wants to have a go at adventuring in these places? It is about, we all have to start where we are. And that's so important to know that it's okay. Like, it's okay to be that beginner. It's okay to use your body in a way that brings you joy without trying to fulfill some stereotypical view of like what a runner should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that we come in all the wonderful shapes and sizes, and you can start where you are. And I want this book to be like, the other titles I thought about it was like, I'm the cheerleader in your pocket, the pocket cheerleader, Run Joy. I want to be, for those women that maybe I'll never meet, I wanted to bring my whole self into book form, and also audible form, right? I'm going to be, you can get me in your ears as well. I'm reading this book to you, that I can be with you, and I can be your coach. I can be your hype woman. I'm going to share everything I've learned with you, and I'm going to bring into this book the voices of women and men. My running physio is a man, Ed, and he's helped me through some injuries, a lot of tendonitis I've had, Achilles tendonitis in perimenopause. So I'm bringing experts into this book, mostly women who are experts within their field. Reenie McGregor, sports dietitian; Kath Monroe, menopause expert; Emma Kirko-Danubi, running specialist; community voices, Tasha Thompson, founder of Black Girls Do Run UK; Mel Bound, founder of This Woman Runs. Like, these women have been instrumental in my journey, in the activism that I do, in how they serve their communities. And I wanted this book to not just be a reflection of my voice, but to show that there is this running community out there. And if you want it, no matter where you are, you can have access to it. And these can be your people too. And I want to be one of your people. So here's the book that will bring you into that, bring you into my world, and be that link into other worlds.
Yeah, fabulous. I love it. And Sabrina, how can people connect with you, follow along with all the amazing work that you are doing? Where are you most active online?
I'm most active online on Instagram. I just love that platform. I love that platform because it allows me to be authentically myself, and I can bring all elements of myself. So whether it is obviously a lot of it's running, but it's motherhood, it's mental health, it's perimenopause, it's all of that. So please follow me on at @sabrunsmiles on Instagram. You can also find me via Black Trail Runners too. So we have a website. I have sabrinapace-humphreys.com. You can connect with me there. But I'm out and about. I'm here. If you want me, just type my name into Google and you will find me and you will find links to me. But if you want that real, authentic day-to-day Sabs, you can find me on Instagram.
That is fantastic. I'll be sharing all the links in the show notes. But Sabrina, I'd love for you to have final words of wisdom, final words of advice, which is, to be fair, I think this gets really difficult because you've just dropped so many pieces of amazing advice throughout the whole episode. Final words of advice for other women listening who are maybe sort of, whether they're wanting to start running, they're going through their own personal challenges, just a few words of encouragement. What would you like to share?
What I'd like to share is the mantra that I use a lot, and it's you can do hard things. As I say in the book, sometimes that hard thing is even thinking about the concept of starting running. Like, that's a hard thing, right? Because there are so many stereotypical ideas we have of what we can and can't do, or we've been told. You can do hard things, even if that hard thing is buying the book, even if that hard thing is getting that old pair of trainers out of the cupboard, even if that hard thing is to look at yourself in the mirror and claim the mantle of I am a runner, even before you've started running. You can do that. You can do hard things. And those hard things, bit by bit, as those building blocks are built, can start to lead to you to live a life beyond your wildest dreams. I am testament to that. In 2009, I did not run. And look what I've shared here. And that has been through believing bit by bit, chunking, as I talk about in the book, that I can do this next hard things. So go and do your hard things.
Absolutely. You can do hard things. And Sabrina, thank you so much for continuing to do hard things. It's been honestly just amazing to catch up with you. A massive congratulations with all of your running, the amazing work that you're doing with Black Trail Runners, and just thank you so much for being your true self, being an activist, an ultra runner, trail runner, and just getting out there and sharing your story. Just incredible to catch up with you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for all your support. And I look forward to coming across you on the trails or some other amazing event sometime soon.
Hey, tribe, how you're doing? I really hope you enjoyed that Tough Girl Podcast extra episode with Sabrina Pace-Humphreys. Now, I am conscious of the time. I know we've been talking a long time, but it has just been absolutely fascinating. If you haven't done so already, please do go back and take a listen to the previous episodes that we had with Sabrina. I think one of the things that I love is by having these audio recordings sort of going back a few years, you can see the place where Sabrina started from when we first spoke, where she is now, and what's gone on in between. And I think that's really, really fascinating to understand more about that journey. So I think you'll really enjoy listening to those earlier episodes. If you are interested in running, obviously we have spoken to a lot of runners on the Tough Girl podcast, runners up to a marathon distance and runners beyond the marathon distance. They are separated into two categories on the website in the resources section. So toughgirlchallenges.com, please do go and check it out. I'd love for you to commit to your next running goal, whatever that may be, whether it's running 1 mile, 10 miles, a marathon, a 50 miler, a 100 miler, or entering a multi-stage race. I'd love to hear about it. So please do send me a DM on Instagram at toughgirlchallenges, or send me an email, sarah@toughgirlchallenges.com. It's always great to hear from listeners of the Tough Girl podcast and learn more about their adventures and challenges. Thank you so much for listening. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.